and what we're going to focus on today is the pool coping that we use for obviously swimming pools, step treads, planter walls, and other features like column caps that might need a bullnose edging to it. The first thing I wanted to kind of go through is just to provide you a general overview of the different types of products and colors that the product comes in, so that you understand the options that are available for to be used on the pool. Obviously, with a pool coping, that's one of the key ingredients of any swimming pool. It's a big focus point of the pool, so we certainly want to make sure that the customer gets all the options available to them. So, on the slide here, if you read through it here quickly, we're going to go through the applications of how the product is installed, wood sizes and thicknesses, and I guess you would say textures that you want to use for coping, and how the edges of the coping are shown as available, the different options out there. And then the overall options of the coping and how it pertains to what is the economical, the most popular items, but also what items can be shown to have a product that we could upsell for greater margins in the industry, that other competitors may or may not have that product. So that's the first one. If you want to go to some of the standard edges, most of you are aware of, if we start with the bottom one, what's called a full bullnose, okay, edging to the pool. That's the typical product that's throughout the industry. It's in concrete pavers for coping, it's in clay pavers for coping, and of course in the travertine and marble and other natural stones. That is what everybody has been using for quite some time. The one above it, the tumbled edge coping, is really shown here in these particular pieces that you see here and here. And what a tumbled edge is that the surface of the product is essentially a square edge coping. But that product line, there's a couple of big benefits to that. One, you can get a coping done at a lower cost, depending on what thickness you go with. It also provides a different type of look that typically concrete pavers or other substituting products cannot provide, because you don't want to have a square edge on those products, because those products, if you do a square edge, they're very sharp and not, conducive on a pool edge for someone to grab onto, where when we take a square edge and we tumble it, and you grab on the edge of it out of a pool coping, you don't get scraped or scratched in any way, and it's still safe to be able to be used for that. It also provides that look, that contemporary look that people are leaning more and more to. Certain parts of the country almost strictly use this type of coping versus the bullnose, which in Florida we're familiar with. The other one is the eaved edge, and that's essentially, as you see on the diagram, just provides another look. Sometimes there's architects and designers that are just familiar with using that product, and they prefer to have that look as opposed to full bullnose. And then the bottom right corner one is the remodel coping, which is what you see here of this particular piece. Be used for a number of different applications, one of which, if you have an existing pool, this is typically going to be the product you would use if you don't want to get into removing the pool coping that's there, and you just want to cap over the existing coping, and you have the ability to raise it up from an elevation standpoint. If they have existing brick, it sits on this, and then you just have it, and this overhang covers the brick that's on there. So this is good when they have an existing, concrete brick coping, and you want to put marble on it.
Dave, are we seeing a lot more of the tumbled in our marketplace because of the cost?
What, I'm sorry, what do you mean?
The tumbled edge.
Yeah.
Are we seeing a lot more? I think Johnny, Knox, was using something like that.
I mean, just based off of what we sell, it's more the full bullnose or the remodel.
Okay.
Yes, they're still very popular. In this market, in the Florida market, most people are still using the full bullnose. But in different parts of the country, the trend has been going away from the bullnose for two different reasons. One, certain markets, they want to save the cost. We ran into it in the Arizona market. They want to use the tumbled thin material as the coping. That's the majority of what's being used in like the southwest part of the country. What's being used in the northeast and in the northwest is all of the square edge thicker material. Almost exclusively they're using that product line. So, but those are the different options that we have as far as the edge. There are other options on if you get into real custom high-end jobs that need something special. Again, this is all natural stone, so you have the ability to fabricate it and do different types of details if it requires to get the project. Okay, next. All right, you already got it. One of the things that I wanted to show you here with this particular product, as opposed to other concrete copings or other products you can use around a pool, you have a number of different options to use. You can, on the first part, you can do a radius coping. And you have customers who have raised spas that have a circular raised spa, and they don't want to have a lot of small pieces around their spa. So the ability to go ahead and take a bigger piece and cut it into a radius coping, a lot of times that becomes their focus point in their pool, so they certainly want to have the ability to do that. More and more we're seeing that's a requested application. The wall caps, and you can see the diagram provides, again, another option to where you have different sizes and the ability to cut to fit the size of the wall or the area. Multi-side coping, that's basically, having coping on maybe 2 or 3 or 4 sides sometimes, and that's when you would get into using a pier cap, or if they have a spillway and they're using, on the spillway, it wraps around all the sides is going to be wrapped with water. First slide here is a picture, kind of what we were just discussing about how the coping is been fabricated. That originally was taken a 24 by 24 piece. It was cut into those pieces and then bullnosed on both the inside and the outside to accomplish that look, but it makes a huge difference in a pool, especially with this pool, happens to be a big focus point of the pool.
Is that done on the job site?
Typically, what would be done for this, depending on the level of plans, you can do it on the job site, or if they have, the pool builder has their drawings that are accurate drawings, because sometimes the pool builder will modify on the field, but you can do them either way, through the plans or on the job site, just depending on the pool contractors.
You mean just the cut, not the bullnose? Obviously, you do the bullnose.
Well, the cut and the bullnose, everything is done fabricated, so when it comes there, it's just placed in the exact dimension, because would not even be cutting the size of it when you're doing that type of fabrication. It's all done off-site and then just installed piece by piece.
Mm-hmm.
You can see what it does when you get to the 3-sided edge, which this is a pretty common application. You have the bullnose facing a spillway, and then you need it on both sides of it. So one of the other things here we noted, could they have used a thinner piece of stone? Why could they have used a thinner piece of stone on this type of application? It just really gets into a personal preference if they wanted to use something thinner than the thicker application you see here. Next slide. Quick overview of the different size bullnoses that we will carry. I have them displayed here. Pretty self-explanatory, but this is the 1.5" thick bullnose right here. What you see here is the 1.25" thick bullnose. This is one of the more popular products that is going to be part of the Travertine paver rollout line. So the difference here obviously is a 1/4 inch of thickness. This is just something more popular with our particular product. We have the 2 1/4" right here, and again that's and the bullnose 2 1/4. We have the flat edge. This is the 1 1/4". That's just a square edge, and then this piece right here happens to be where you can see the dimension on the bottom, 16 by 24. Those are things that are going to be selected typically where it's pre-planned with the pool company. It's planned for it to be that large of a coping on their pool. Their beam would be larger, and they would have designed the pool to have that product. We are selling quite a bit of that product in this market. It does come in the thicker size as well, and it just gives a different look to your overall pool when you go with a real wide pool coping on there. So, Next slide.
Why don't you ask some questions about, or explain why you would use a 4-inch wide face versus a 12 versus a 24?
Well, we have those photos later to show that, right?
Well, this,
No.
okay.
Yeah.
You can do it here.
So, on this particular pool here, you see an application where they did, they have a raised spa, and they've used, like 4x9 coping on there. You can see the deck, material is obviously a large size pattern throughout the deck, and then they've used that particular coping. One of the things that I wanted to bring up here is, what are your thoughts, and what would be some other options on this coping, as opposed to what we have, shown here in the picture? Darren?
Well, because it's a larger footprint and straight lines, you could use the 16 by 24
Right,
and use less pieces, less cuts.
right.
That, to me, that would be more representative of some type of round spa,
Kidney, right,
a lot of cuts.
right. And that's one of the things, when you're getting into this, and what will set you apart from another customer that's trying to sell products similar, is when you give them the option that they may not know, because this is a standard item, 4x9 coping is pretty standard throughout the industry. They simply may not be aware that they could have done a larger piece, which would have looked, probably in my opinion, a little bit better because the pattern's so big. Not to mention the fact that they could have done bullnose on the inside and outside with one piece. So now they could have a few pieces where it would really be substantial around that spa area. And it would probably be, instead of a focus point of where it's a lot of little pieces, like Darren said, it's going to be a much larger piece. It's going to be more something that stands out for them. Here's another application where they've again selected the smaller coping, and if you can take note of the area where the spillway is on the second spillway, where they have the small pedestal areas, where they're being pointed out right now. You can certainly see there's a number of small cuts, different size cuts, and for someone to look at that now, they would look back and say, well, that's what I had to use. But knowing that we have these other products available in the right sizes, that could have been done in one piece probably. At most, it would have been in two pieces that would have been designed right to meet the look there, and that could have really made this project look a little bit better. On the spa, you have the same thing. You have a number of cuts. You have 45-degree cuts with a lot of small pieces, a lot of grout joint. When you're using marble and then you put cement next to marble, it's not the ideal situation. You want to try to have your grout joints to be like 1/8 of an inch, if you could, on an ideal pool. And here, they take over so much of the grout joints, and then we all know that cement may mildew over time differently, and now you got those grout joints not going to look, and they're going to take away from the overall look of the project. So, next slide. Here's another pool. Gretchen, what do you think you would have done differently on this pool?
I would have went definitely with the bigger piece. Instead of having all those grout joints, it looks
Right on the coping
on the
again.
coping, yep.
Yeah. And
Especially
again, it
against
just
that
brings out
bigger,
the-
against the bigger
Up against the
deck.
bigger deck, it looks funny.
Right. So, and the reason that this is done is simply because we need to educate our customers more, about it. So if we educate the customer, then they're gonna make this, be aware that that's available. Another thing to point out, when, on the other side of it, when a customer says, I want the big piece of coping, we need to also make sure that they are able to use that big piece, because we do have customers that will say, they get in the habit of using the larger sizes, because it looks great, but then they have it, try to order it for a kidney-shaped pool with a lot of radiuses and things like that, and then they're stuck with trying to cut the large pieces, and you can't do that either. So it's very important to know the design of the pool and what they're going to be using it, especially if they do ask for the larger format sizes. Next slide. Here's a pool where, again, the raised spa, but all those pieces on that raised spa were done with fabrication. We took 24 by 24, 2.25 thick material. It was templated and it was cut to provide bullnose on all the sizes required. It then fits right on there, as opposed to having a thing where we got to go out there and the installer has to cut a lot of pieces to create that that look. Again, usually these spas nowadays, they're a main focus point. You can see on the pool coping itself, they use 12 by 24 pieces. And again, it just gives a different look, especially when you're using large pieces on the decking itself, so you want to keep that in mind. Next time. These are some questions that when we go to sell a product, and when anyone is selling, it's very important to ask questions to find out, so we can give the proper answer for any material that we're selling. So these are some of the most popular questions that are asked, and we almost need to ask on any scenario that you're talking with a person buying coping about. And obviously you can see in here, is your pool going to be rectangular, which allows you to then give the option, even if they've chosen the smaller ones, to go with the bigger sizes that are straight and will give a better look. Existing coping, that's how we come in and give them the remodel solution. This may be only one solution, it may not be what they want to do, but at least we've brought them up to speed with what is out there. Obviously the quantity that you need, the linear footage. Couple of things to just make sure, and most of us within the industry would always know that, but when they start getting into ordering stuff different than 4x9, sometimes the pool company's so used to ordering 350 pieces for their pool or 400 pieces, and then next thing you know, you're going to order, and they ordered 12 by 24 and they ordered 400 pieces. We need to, it's just something that they're not thinking about, the fact that I'm sure their pool's not that large and they're used to getting that. We don't want to ship that out. So if you see those type of orders, certainly we all know what the average pool is. Are there any raised areas? Again, advise them double bullnose, fabrication, what it's going to look like, if they have to put bullnose back to back. That's always something, important. One of the things when you start cutting coping, that's tumbled marble, and it has a tumbled edge on it, and you cut the sides of it, well now it's going to have a cut edge. So that's something to understand when you're explaining to a customer what they're looking for. If they're going to know that they're cutting all these little pieces to make little pie shapes to accomplish a radius area, that they're going to have small pieces, and the tumbled edge is going to be cut off of it when they accomplish that. When do they need the product? Natural stone, typically we are keeping a lot of the pool coping available, but not only should you ask them when they need it, but why are they going to just choose that particular size? So you can always substitute it as opposed to with concrete brick bullnose. They don't have a 4x9 and red today. Well, you don't have the option of giving them a 12 by 12 or 12 by 24, an inch and a half, a 2 1/4. You only have really one type of concrete paper. With our customers, with the travertine, if they order a 4x9 2 1/4 and we don't have it in stock or it's not anywhere to be found, then we should at least ask them if we can use a 4 by 12. Or do they need an inch and a half? Or can they use a 12 by 12? So maintaining the same color is very important typically because they've already selected the surrounding areas with it, but maybe a different size, maybe a substitute. So it's always good to ask them what other options they could consider if it's not available. I'm assuming with pool tile it's the same scenario. If they don't have option 1, maybe option 2. So it's the same selection process. And then, of course, the important thing is also asking what they're going to use for their deck material. We certainly all want to get the coping, which is the main thing ordered early on in the project, but we want to make sure that we are asking about getting what on the pool deck. Obviously, that's the bigger dollars on it. Next one? I think that's, yeah. Okay. Did I meet the time? Good. Do you have any questions?
You were just that thorough.
Just that thorough.